Hey everyone, for my first review, I've decided to talk about Cowboy Bebop. There's two reasons why I picked Cowboy Bebop. One, it was the first article that I wrote for my blog as a review. Two, Cowboy Bebop is just plain awesome. I consider Cowboy Bebop to be a classic animated masterpiece, and it is my favorite anime of all time. I watched Cowboy Bebop for the first time back in 2009, I think. Not exactly sure. But at that time, I was also watching other anime as well. And the shows I was watching were all the mainstream ones. I was watching Bleach, Naruto, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Death Note, One Piece. Before that, I was watching mainstream shows when I was a kid as well. I was watching Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT. I watched them all. Cowboy Bebop was something that was brought to my attention when I heard that 20th Century Fox had acquired the rights to adapt the anime into a live action film. Additionally, they had Keanu Reeves attached to star in the movie. When I heard the news of this development, it made me curious because I wondered why a major studio wouldn't try to develop one of the mainstream animes into live action. Now, I know that they had made Dragon Ball Evolution and released it in 2009, and it was a big failure, but I was still wondering why Cowboy Bebop? Why this show that I had never heard of? I was curious as to what they found appealing about Cowboy Bebop to want to potentially invest tens of millions, no, hundreds of millions of dollars into making this into a live action. And I was curious about what appealed to Keanu Reeves as an actor to want to be the lead of this adaptation. So I watched the show out of pure curiosity. I didn't read anything about it beforehand, did not do a Google search. I just went to one of the anime sites, typed Cowboy Bebop, and watched episode 1. I was completely mesmerized from the first episode onwards. And to this day, it is my favorite anime of all time. I know I mentioned that before, but I'm mentioning it again now. I'll never forget the feeling I had when I first watched the show. It was unconventional to anything I had seen before at that time. I mean, a couple of things about those mainstream animes I mentioned before was the fact that number one, they were really long. Naruto and Bleach were still ongoing at the time, and they were quite long. One Piece is still ongoing, and I'm still watching it. And Dragon Ball Z were long shows as well. And the other thing about all of those shows is that they had sequels. Pokemon has had various sequels. Yu-Gi-Oh has had various sequels. Even Digimon had various sequels with different characters taking on the roles of the protagonists. So what I found unique about Cowboy Bebop was that this was a show that had a definitive beginning, middle, and an end. And that was strange to me. I expected the show to be like 100 episodes long, but it was 26 instead. And I was like, all right, that seemed interesting. Let's see what it's about. And despite having the term bebop in its title, I did not expect a jazz track to be the song for the opening credits. And the moment I saw the credits, I was hooked. The title sequence was beautifully animated, and the song Tank is awesome. Any Cowboy Bebop fan will go on about how amazing the music is, and rightfully so. Yoko Kanno's score is unparalleled, is unmatched when it comes to anime scores. The four things I loved about this show from the beginning and to this day are the characters, the animation style, the music, as I talked about before, and the story structure. And I want to break down the premise of the show and the story structure. The setting of the show is the year 2071, and it's a world where humans have migrated from Earth to space and have started to inhabit the other planets in our solar system. The premise of the show centers around four characters who are bounty hunters in this universe, catching criminals for a living. Their names are Spike Spiegel, Jet Black, Faye Valentine, and Radical Edward. Each character has an ambiguous and checkered past that has shackled them in the present moment, which means they can't move forward with their lives. They are constantly tied back to the traumatic events of their past, And the story is about them coming to terms with what has happened with them until they are able to let go. They have to confront what has happened in their past, and they have to find their closure. The structure of the show is also very simple and unique. Well, unique for an anime, I should say. It is episodic in nature, which means most of the episodes are self contained. But as the story progresses, we find out what the events of each character's past is. And as the story progresses, an overarching plot starts to emerge as well. Out of all the four characters, Spike Spiegel is the one who gets the most exploration of his backstory, I would say, and arguably he is the protagonist of the show despite it being an ensemble. Because from the beginning of the show to the midway point and to the finale, all centers around his backstory. The other characters get the resolution to their stories prior to the finale, while Spike gets his closure at the very last episode. And there's a great build up to that, guys, and a satisfying payoff for each character's story, but especially Spike's story. Then we have Jet Black, who used to be a former cop, and a tragedy working as a cop led him to becoming a bounty hunter. Then we have Faye Valentine, who is a woman. When we're introduced to her, all we know is that she has a massive debt, and she's either trying to run away from her debtors or trying to catch bounties to pay off the debt that she has. I'm trying to be very vague about these character backstories, guys, because I want to avoid spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen the show. But trust me when I say each of these characters are well written, well fleshed out. The voice acting is so good. And each backstory or each character story and character development meets its natural and satisfying conclusion as you watch the show. Spike is my favorite character from the show, no doubt there. He has been from the beginning and still is to this day. Jet Black and Faye Valentine are also amazing characters. They're amazing protagonists in their own right. Their stories are equally heartbreaking as Spike's is, but also very different. In regards to the character Radical Ed, compared to the three characters, there are some significant differences. One is that Ed is a child while the other three are adults. And the other difference is that Ed does not have a tragic backstory that prevents her from moving forward. She is a character who lives in the present moment, actually, compared to the other three. Spike, Jet, and Faye look backwards constantly. Ed looks at the present. She's able to stay in the moment and look forward. Her story is not as deep or as heavy as the other characters' backstories are, but she is a significant character in the group. She plays a significant role when it comes to catching criminals. And philosophically speaking, the contrast between the three adults looking at the past and this character being able to look in the present provides a nice counterbalance to the structure of the show, or I should say the philosophy of the show. Despite being an important character to the show and a fan favorite character, I have to admit Radical Ed is my least favorite character of the crew, simply because she doesn't do much. Yes, her hacking skills does come in handy when it comes to catching criminals, but she rarely does anything. There's no other way I can phrase it. When I watched the Cowboy Bebop anime movie, Knocking on Heaven's Door, she's the character who has the least amount of screen time. And when we get to the third act of the show, she doesn't contribute anything significant to the resolution of the story or to the defeat of the villain. It's Spike, Jet, and Faye who do all the work. And Ed's storyline is not as strong as I would have liked it to have been as a fan while I was watching the show. Apart from the amazing characters, what has to be addressed about the brilliance of the show is the genre-bending nature of it. This show takes multiple genres and mixes them together to create a unique piece of art for the overall story, but also for the individual self-contained episodes as well. I'm a big science fiction fan and I'm a big crime fan. Those are my two favorite genres when it comes to any medium, whether it's movies, TV shows, or anime. The primary genres that the show takes and mixes together are those two. So when it came to the self-contained episodes, the creative team took specific genres and sometimes specific movies and created very unique individual stories. A perfect example would be Toys in the Attic. This episode is episode number 11 and it is a fan favorite. If you've seen the movie Alien and you watch Toys in the Attic, it is very obvious as to the influence Alien had in the construction of this episode because it is filled with references and homages to that movie. There are other genres that are referenced as well. I mean, spaghetti westerns are a big part of the episodes of this show. I mean, it being titled Cowboy Bebop, it was pretty obvious that Western movies were gonna have an influence. But then you also get horror movie influences, blaxploitation films influenced episodes of this show. And what I loved about the genre-bending nature of the show is that it paved the way for the show to be creative and not formulaic. Even though it's episodic, you do not know what to expect from the next episode. You do not know what direction the next episode will take. It is unpredictable in that sense. Another thing that I have to come back to is the music. I know I talked about it before, but it's worth mentioning because the music also adds to the genre-bending nature of the show. With the term cowboy and bebop in the title, you get a variety of Western style music, but you also get so many jazz tracks. Western and bebop sounds like an unusual combination, but Yoko Kanno and the band Seatbelts make it work so beautifully. And the soundtrack itself is diverse in nature, and you don't know what to expect when you're listening to the music in the show. You could get something totally beautiful that is smooth or kinetic and energetic or downright goofy depending on the episode and the context and the character that you are watching about. I have 3 criticisms, one being Edward as my least favorite character. The other is the pace of the show. Despite its length being 26 episodes, the show can be very slow. And the other thing is that not every self-contained episode is a hit. Majority of them are fantastic, but there are some that are unnecessary. I don't have time to go into which episode specifically that I didn't like, but I do want to let you guys know not every episode is a knockout of the park. There are some weak ones. Final thoughts, guys. If you're an anime fan, this is a show that you at least have to watch. Give it a shot. It may not be for everybody, but it's worth watching because it's so unique. My recommendation would be to watch the first 5 episodes and see if it hooks on to you from there. Episode 5 is the episode that addresses Spike's backstory for the first time. It is the episode that brings in the intrigue to the show and that would get you invested in wanting to see more of the characters in general. If you watch these 5 episodes and are not interested, then the show might not be for you. But if you are an anime fan, I have to emphasize, give the show a chance. If you are going to watch this show, you have to watch it in the English dub because the voices are amazing. And also it goes well with the aesthetics and the tone of the series overall. I give Cowboy Bebop a 9.5 out of 10. This is an anime that I absolutely love. I revisit it frequently, and whenever I rewatch it, I watch it from beginning to end. I even watch the episodes that I don't like. I never miss a single episode because it just adds to the complete experience of the show. If you love Cowboy Bebop, leave your thoughts down below and let's nerd out. Let's talk about what we love about the show. Who's your favorite character? What's your favorite episode? And what's your favorite song? Those are my 3 questions to any Cowboy Bebop fan. And if you're an anime fan in general, have you heard about Cowboy Bebop? Is this something that has been recommended to you before? Are you curious about checking it out? If you like this video, give me the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, click the bell icon for notifications. I have more videos coming up very, very soon. Until then, goodbye.